Hi friends. So today I wanted to talk about one of the fruit of the Spirit. Last time we spoke, we talked about one fruit of the Spirit being about love, and love is kind, love is patient. But today I want to focus on love is kind, love is patient, it doesn't boast, it doesn't envy, so it's not jealous, and it's not rude, right? So so if you look at, for example, we're going to look at 1 Corinthians 13, 1 verses 5. So it just talks about, love is kind, love is patient, it doesn't boast, it doesn't envy, it's not rude, doesn't keep kind of wrong. And a lot of times, jealousy is an emotion that no one wants to admit because it's embarrassing, you feel childish, and we want to believe that we left it in middle school, but at the end of the day, we can still feel naturally jealous as humans. And it's a natural feeling, it's a natural human feeling. But the part about it is you don't want it to eat you alive. You don't want it to take over. Because sometimes when you have so much jealousy, you forget to love. How are you supposed to love your neighbor if you're jealous, right? And so the first problem is when we're jealous, what does that stem from? Jealousy stems from fear, right? Fear that someone might take your position, someone might take your place, someone might be better than you. It's a fear. It's living in lack and you live in fear. That's the first step. So a good example of that is with David and Goliath. David was a shepherd boy, but he also had a history of always fighting. Like he killed a lion with he beat a lion, he ended up killing a lion for. So he's always been fighting, right? But no one ever took him seriously. He was about 16, 17 years old until he went against Goliath. Goliath was a big, giant person. He was huge, right? And then when David beat him with the sling, he didn't even get close to him. And he came in, he was so confident because everyone was saying, who wants to fight Goliath? And everyone was like, I'm not doing it, you do it, you do it. No one wanted to do it because he was so huge, right? And then when this 16, 17-year-old boy comes, who's a shepherd, and he's confident in himself, we're like, they're probably like, who do you think you are? You're a kid, and you're so small compared to him. You have no fighting experience. Like, who do you think you are? Because he was so confident. You know why he was confident? He was confident because he didn't define an outside exterior thing. Actually, outside exterior things did not define him, right? He found his identity in God and what God said to him about him, what God says about him. That's where he found his identity. So the first thing we have to do is find our identity. Our identity is what God says about us, not the things that we have, not material things, not your title, not your career, not whatever situation it is. It's not external things. It's what God says about you, and you know yourself. No one else defines you, right? So that's the first step. You have to know your identity in God. That's the first step to overcome jealousy. So when he finally did beat Goliath, and now everyone wanted to know who he was. They're like, who is this kid? And then Saul, who was one of the kings at the time, he became jealous of David because he was like, okay, they're saying Saul killed 1,000 people, David killed 10,000 people, or over 10,000. It was more than double than Saul. And then Saul was just like, he kept putting David in battles, hoping that someone would be able to kill David. But David was able to beat all of them. He was able to beat all of them, so he became more and more jealous. And the whole time, David was being very humble, and just Saul just kept getting more and more jealous. So Saul started to hating David more and more and more. So if we look at Samuel, 1 Samuel 18, verses 6 to 9, it basically talks about how when David beat Goliath, all the women were singing and they're praising, and they were saying that Saul had slayed his thousands and David his 10,000s. And then Saul eyed David that day forward. So he became jealous of him that day forward because he was killing more people than him. He beat Goliath, and then later on, David fell in love with his daughter and married his Saul's daughter. So he was just very jealous of him, and it's out of fear that he's going to take my place, fear he's going to take my crown. If the people love him so much, then what else are they going to let him have, or what else is he going to take from me? But the problem is Saul's identity was in the crown, his crown. Your identity should not be in your crown or what you do or anything like that. Your identity should be in Christ and what Christ says about you. So when you live in fear, because someone's going to take something from you or someone from you, then you start to become insecure. And then when you start to become insecure, you start to say, oh, you start to become jealous of everybody. Sometimes David, he wasn't even a person that boasts. He didn't boast and say, I killed a lion, I killed Goliath. He didn't boast. He didn't boast. He didn't brag. He didn't try to make anyone jealous. Sometimes people would just be jealous of you just because. Just for being, just for breathing, you know. But really it's because they're out of fear, and then that fear grows into security, to insecurity, and that insecurity grows into jealousy. So you got to be careful. But the sad part is when they become fearful and that fear becomes insecurity and then to jealousy, they don't realize that it's making them harder and it's making them rotten and it's taking away the love part, right? Because you can't have both. You can't have jealousy and still love. You got to pick one, right? At the end of the day, it affects you. It doesn't affect anybody else. So it's not a good way to live. So one of the ways we can overcome that is you have to identify yourself in Christ, right? You have to understand that, humans don't identify me. Exterior things doesn't identify me. God identifies me. He says I'm a masterpiece. You know, the Bible is what identifies me, and God identifies me, not in exterior things and not in humans. Another thing is you have to be generous. You have to be able to just let things go and let it go, right? For example, Saul's son, Jonathan, he was very generous and he was very kind, and he was always like he could have been. He was 22 years old. He could have been jealous of David. He could have said, "Oh, David beat Goliath. He's younger than me. He's doing a lot more." He could have been jealous of him. He had a lot of reasons to be jealous of him, right? But he never was. He was never jealous of David. So he was a great example of Jonathan was, which is Saul's son. And another way to overcome jealousy is you have to know your purpose. You know, everyone's purpose is different, so you have to find out what your purpose is in this life in order to feel fulfilled and focus on that. Instead of being so jealous, focus on your purpose and what God has for you. When you focus on your purpose, you don't have time to be jealous of anybody else. You know, for me personally, everyone's purpose is different too, because a lot of times, say for example, you see someone that's a singer or designer and they have the same skills that you have, or maybe you have better skills than them, but you feel like they're more successful than you, or they have a better life than you, or they're living the life that you want to live, and then you become jealous. But you should just find your own purpose. If you feel a little jealous, it's important to just find your purpose and find what purpose God has for you and focus on that instead of focusing on, I'm a singer, she's a singer, why is he more successful? Why is he a better writer? Why is he has a better career than me? Like, don't try to always outdo somebody, because you're always going to meet someone that's always better. Like all of us, you're always going to have someone that looks better, you're going to have someone that has a better physique, you're going to meet someone that has more money, you're going to meet someone more successful. There's always someone that has something, but that doesn't mean they have all the good qualities. It's just that quality that you're interested in. You're always going to have someone that can outdo that, right? So, and that's where we're all different, which just makes us great. So, for me personally, I don't like jealousy. If I see someone great, for me, I would admire. I would be like, wow, I want to learn how she got that way so I can learn from them. For me, I get inspired. I want to learn from them. I don't get jealous. I don't get envious. And plus, you're supposed to love your neighbor as yourselves, right? That's the second biggest commandment. First one is to love God with all your heart, all your soul, and the second one is to love your neighbors as yourselves. So if you struggle with jealousy, try to find how you identify yourself. Work on being generous, and then find your purpose.